number of years. We've prayed for our rain situation, our water situation, and we've actually have a fairly wet season we're going through right now, and we're hoping it continues. There's snow on the Hermon. We've prayed for the IDF to be that kind of army that will protect us in this wonderful neighborhood we live in, and the IDF has exactly done that, including developing terror tunnel detection devices so that we can blow up these terror tunnels before they come in and kidnap our people. We've prayed for God to confound Israel's enemies. You look around this neighborhood, it's like Israel's enemies are fighting each other and they don't have time to fight us. Well, that we see as an answer to prayer. We've prayed for our Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. And Bibi, although he's been under so much pressure, so much intensity, has actually done a wonderful job as being our Prime Minister. We've prayed for the body of Messiah in Israel to grow and mature. And we're seeing that. And while we have problems in the body of Messiah, that tells us it's growing. Because the only time a person doesn't have problems is if they're dead. Thank God it's growing. The BDS movement, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, since that started, Israel's economy has grown. So I don't know what they're doing. We've prayed for our foreign connections. And most of you know that Netanyahu just spent a beautiful 5 days in the second largest nation on the face of the earth, where this radical Hindu fundamentalist government treated Netanyahu as a king. They honored him as the leader of this small Jewish nation. Talk about incredible things that God is doing. He's doing it. And then we prayed for Mike Pence, Vice President of the United States, who's still here in Israel today. He's leaving later. He gave a wonderful, encouraging message to the Knesset last night. Then, as we moved on to prayer, we started out by recognizing that since Jerusalem is the heart of God's plan for the return of the Lord and for the glory of God and the benefit of the nations, our first burden was to pray that Donald Trump would actually do what he says, that he would move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So one of the people prayed, let there be more opposition against Trump for making this move, because it apparently is, he's the kind of man, the more opposition he gets, the more determined he is. And we held Trump into his promises. We asked that God would silence the voices that are speaking against him in the State Department. Proverbs 16:9 was prayed, that there are many thoughts in a man's heart, but the Lord guides his steps. May the Lord guide the steps of Trump. And that we ask the Lord to make Trump the great real estate agent that he thinks he is, by buying a place and moving that embassy by the end of next year, which is what Vice President Pence told us in the Knesset. And then we broke up into small groups and we asked the people, probably representing 30 or so different nations at the prayer conference, to pray for their governments to move their embassies to Jerusalem. In the second session, we talked about how the Lord's Prayer, may your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, is intimately connected with the restoration of Israel. And we prayed for the churches in the nations who don't have a clue about this, to actually understand when they're praying the Lord's Prayer, the restoration of Israel, the resurrection of Jerusalem is an answer to that. That they would understand what the Bible says about the connection between Jerusalem and the return of the King. We thanked God that His Word was settled forever in heaven, and we asked that as God gave revelation, revelation would turn into vision, and vision would turn into practical steps. Then we ended up this time of prayer this morning by praying for God to do something miraculously quicker in Jerusalem. One of the keys being in Zechariah 12, when the nations come against us, He would pour out the spirit of grace and supplication, and they would look upon Him whom they've pierced. In other words, all Israel would be saved. And so we ended up praying for the salvation of Israel. Now, obviously there was more, but I want to keep this short. We want to thank you for joining us, and Lord willing, we'll see you again. Shalom from Zion. Lehitrot.